What is going on, everybody? I'm BobbyFi back here with my man Eric Sheets-Haber. We are just going to be doing like a final tune-up here for our Draftkings lineups for the PGA RBC Heritage Classic that's coming up. I don't know when you'll see this, but it's coming up just in about 10, 12 hours. So hopefully we'll get this out to you pretty soon. Sheets, I know we already did a video. Anything, I know I sort of asked you a little bit pre-show, anything that sort of changed your mind or anything that sort of stood out to you over the last few days, an angle you want to take on the slate?
Yeah, so I thought about it, and I was when we went over the plays or whatever, I was commenting that there was just so much stuff in that 8 to 9K range. It was very difficult for me to justify paying anything above that, and it also made it difficult for me to justify paying a lot below that. And when we go through my lineups, we'll see what I ended up accomplishing. And unfortunately, the bad news is, or the good news is NASCAR this weekend is a racetrack that just has all kinds of crashes and wrecks and stuff like that. And I don't know if I'm ready to deal with that. So I don't think I'm going to play as much NASCAR, which just means it's just that much more is going to go into golf, I think. So
Let me share your screen and let's start talking about some of the.
So this is
what you're saying so far.
So what I ended up doing, okay, so you'll see I have about, well, I'll show you the breakdown. I have one single entry, and then I have 30 entries in the Millie Maker, okay, which is really like a lot for me. You know what I mean? Like I really don't put that much in. But, you know, I was listening to some people talk about how to play golf, and, we talked about cards, we talked about other like smart guys, and I really didn't want to overextend my player pool all that much. I really didn't want to dip my toe and do whatever. So for better or for worse, all right, I have a grand total, I think, of 4 people below 8K and basically nobody above Webb Simpson. Okay, so
right,
I have Stewart, Redmond, and Fitzpatrick, okay, and I got just a lot of Hovland, and I'm just basically all loaded with all of these 8K guys, like from Simpson down to Woodland and Finau, Kuchar, Berger, all those, and Hatton. And, it's just kind of a decision that I made. And, and that also, what that also means is I've got none of this, okay?
right.
I've got none of the 2 best players from last week, Xander and Morikawa. I felt comfortable fading it.
You got Berger. Berger did win last week.
Right. The only reason I did Berger, okay, again, is because I felt as though he's not as big of a name, so people are more looking for him to just say, oh, that was just kind of a fluke and not run it back or whatever it is.
Right.
So I didn't go with McIlroy. The guys that I really considered at the top, I just didn't, okay? If I had to pick 1 or 2, I would have taken Rahm and then Thomas. Mm-hmm. I am really of the belief, I got to find Big T somewhere on Twitter because I know that he's like going to be all over DeChambeau, he has been saying. I am really into him missing the cut this week.
DeChambeau is the kind of guy Big T would like, just like you're super big, absolutely douchey, just seems like an absolute stone cold country redneck boy that Big T just is all about.
Anyway, I'm not playing, and this is what I'm doing. I'm not playing any of this. And I even went back. I said maybe I should just get a couple of lineups where I play a couple of these guys and play whatever. But you know what? I've made peace with what I'm doing, and and a lot of it comes from the projections are close enough anyway. And the other thing is maybe this is just not really me because I'm really kind of a numbers guy, whatever. But I just look visually at all these dudes in this 8K thing, and all these guys are just so freaking good that I just have no issues with playing any of them, So I even added in, just for fun, I added in a couple of Jordan Spieths also, just because, you know what, all I heard for the last 3 days is how many strokes he gained putting, and he was so lucky, and people, you know what I mean, it was a terrible play this week. So you know what, I'll throw a little bit of him in also. And that's kind of where I am at. Now, again, just to review, my the sub 8K plays were Fitzpatrick, who we talked about, and then there's Hovland. I might have thrown in a Jason Day lineup just because
Yeah.
He's Jason Day, he's 7,600. You know
I actually think Jason Day is a reasonable play for this course. Like, it's a long shot play, but it's one that could easily like he could win the tournament. I mean,
and Harris English, he's the other guy. I'm sorry I played under because I mean
those guys will both be very low on.
he was stone chalk and last week, and no one's going to own him this week. So that's where I'm at. And this is usually not me. I usually kind of splash around a little bit. I'm pretty well concentrated. I've made peace, and that's just kind of where I'm at. Where you want to move to now I will tell you, by the way, that I actually look at FanDuel, and for whatever reason, FanDuel is kind of a little different.
Very different.
And I played one lineup on FanDuel that is just the opposite of all this.
Let's see your FanDuel lineup, because I'm actually curious.
Yeah,
I was looking over there, and it's a little weird.
I'm going to pull this up because it's literally much different, because I picked a couple of like course guys that were really, really cheap. And so in this one, I have Rahm, Thomas, and Webb Simpson. And I took Harris English, and I took Vaughn Taylor, who was just the ultimate kind of like par short guy. And Ryan Moore also. Both these guys I thought were fine and were going to be really low owned. So this is the one. This is the FanDuel lineup I have. Now, fortunately, the bigger one, I guess, kind of sold out, or they don't have one. So I don't feel tempted to go and play like 50 lineups to try to win 10K, which is like their big MTT and GPP. But I might enter the big one just for this one lineup, you know. But so FanDuel for me was just different. But DraftKings, where this
I like
is.
that you're in golf. One of the things that I've noticed is that, and I do it myself too much, is that it's really hard to find that core. Like it's hard to find the I want to play four guys at 50+% kind of a situation. You want to sort of spread it out, especially in this situation where you have all these players playing, and so many players. And we mentioned this, the other day when we did our show. So many of these players have never played this course before. So many of the top players have never played this course before. So it's actually interesting when you read some of the odds from some of the DFS sites versus some of the Vegas odds. I thought that was kind of interesting, but a lot of the things that we're much on the same page with a lot of this stuff. I'm very high on Kuchar, Woodland, and Reed, just like you are. Those are and Simpson.
Are you ready? Are you at a point where you could share your screen or not?
Share my screen. Yeah, I was going to give you some percentages first. I don't want to give away the site I'm using for all that stuff.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention one guy who I'm going to be all over in this. And when I share my screen, I realize now that I need to re-download this the percentage app, because it doesn't have the percentage I own of each player.
Oh, you mean the you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The extension.
Yeah, the extension. So I've got to re-download that, but I'll do that, before our next show, not today, obviously. But a couple guys just that are a little bit different that I just wanted to throw out there that are not a little different. It's mostly we're on the same page with our cores on this. But the other guys who I'll have the most ownership of, just like you, Hovland also is one of them. I like Ian Poulter. He's obviously been incredible on this course in the past. Matt Kuchar you have also, but Jason Kokrak, however we want to pronounce his last name.
There you go.
And JT Poston are the other highest owned players I have, along with Fitzpatrick, like you. I really like all those guys. So I'm going to turn it over and share my screen sheets once you're done with yours.
Yeah, before you do that, I do want to give a shout out to someone who got me thinking. And this is a person who know for a long time in poker and gambling, just really one of my favorites, and that's Below Above. He was very supportive of me when I first started doing DFS, and he's like, wow, I'm so psyched that you're going to be doing content too. I can't wait to hear your comments on stuff. And he actually came in because he actually watched, I guess, our preview video the other day, and he came into me and he said, listen, if you're having a trouble moving up to these big, the 12, 11K guys, maybe you should, because apparently a lot of people are going to be doing what you're doing, Eric. And I guess that could be. But
I think you have a lot of chalk, but you also have guys who people aren't going to play, like Redmond and Stewart. Like,
right.
I would say, like, in general, maybe you want to add one more de-chalkifier to these lineups. But okay. Berger is probably going to be sub 10% anyway, or around 10%. So you kind of have it. So I don't think it's that big of a stretch. But ideally with golf, I would try to personally, but it's a fine line.
Dude, what I'll tell you, I mean, like, I hate to give a shout out to what's his name again, to the Big T, but I mean, like last week, I was like over freaking 21, and like I said, I'll take some niblets before I need giblets. You know what I mean? I don't need to go all these 1% guys. I want to cash a couple of tickets here.
I mean, but if you look at who was at the top of the tournament board last week, you're talking about mostly guys. Almost everybody was 13% or under.
Okay.
And then you had the guys who were the second tier level guys who were, you had guys who up there who were like Kokrak, however you want to pronounce his last name. I mean, he was what, like 2% owned, and he finished third. Again, being one of my favorite plays this week. So look, wait, did Big T win anything last week?
I don't have no idea.
I didn't know whether you were talking about just because the giblets or whether he had won something that I missed.
No, because you always that's just his tagline.
Yeah.
So I say I'm not worried about the giblets till I can at least get a little niblet. I want to get. I'm not too worried about getting all my 1% guys home. Let's see if I can get better than one guy to make the cut this week. How about that? That would be nice.
Yeah, that would be nice. The truth is, like, it's a funny sweat with golf that I feel like Fridays are kind of fun and exciting. And Thursdays mornings are fun because you see how your guys are going.
Yeah.
Sundays are a little bit like grindy. They don't, there's never going to be an ultimate satisfaction. You want your guys to be in contention, but they kind of already were if they made the cut anyway. Like, it's just, I found that my Saturdays are a little bit boring with the golf sweat. Am I the only one?
Well, when one day when I get a sweat on Sunday, I'll let you know how that feels. But just a little publicity, whatever. So Saturday, since you brought it up, so Saturday is going to be a zoo on my computer. So what I'm doing Saturday is literally from 3 till 7. I'm going to live stream, and I already tested it. I'll be able to live stream both on my Twitch channel, which I've never used, but I've just set up a new, whatever you call it. And I'm going to, I can stream at the same time on the YouTube channel.
Nice.
So I get that all figured out.
Beautiful. This is, I saw you tweet about it. I'm excited about it. I'm going to try.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to be sweating the golf, right? I'm going to be sweating probably some Vroom, some Xfinity, and some trucks. And I'm going to be sweating and probably live betting on the entire horse racing slate leading up until the Belmont Stakes at the end of the day. So so I got all kinds of sweat Saturday. Hey, if I got some guys going Sunday in golf, I can just sit back on my butt and enjoy myself on Father's Day and watch that come in, hopefully.
Yeah. And we're going to be doing a little live, we're going to try and starting Friday, we're going to try and do like a little how's the tournament breaking out kind of a show going on. Get you guys involved. Maybe we'll do them live as well. I think that makes a lot of sense, actually.
And and Bobby, once you get your computer situation, your stream back, we should do more live stuff where we can take questions and all that kind of stuff.
I think we should do that. I think we should do it this weekend. I think that'd be fun. Okay. If anybody's willing to jump on in, you guys jump on in. We'll run some live shows. I'll try and give you guys a heads up on Twitter, whatever, if you have any other questions. I've also had some nice people reach out to us in the DMs just saying, hey, I didn't know you guys were doing this. I appreciate you guys being out there. What do you think of this and that? And I will respond to all those messages. I promise you guys. I will.
All right. So I'm going to stop my screen share. You can pull up yours?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to, let's see. All right. Give me 1 second here. And you got me. Just join Draftkings. Yeah, that should be right.
Yeah. Now tell me, now remind me. So what do you, if you don't mind, look at that all Asian lineup in the top left. Look at that.
That was made somewhat for fun. Okay.
Okay.
So I did go for the all, basically, Morikawa is, from LA. Some of the other guys, but still like, I just thought it was an interesting, I really do like Matsuyama and Im this weekend. And I'm okay with On.
You're not gonna play CT Pan, are you?
I will have a lineup or a couple lineups probably with him, but this was more just of an example of like a lineup that I feel like these guys are always under-owned in every tournament. So
that's great. That's a great lineup.
I decided to make one like that.
Let me. So what? Now I used to ask you this all the time when you did the basketball. So what are you playing?
So I'm playing the two of the 555s.
Okay.
The single entries, the 100, the 200s, those things.
Okay.
And then I'm playing probably about 100 to 150. I'm not sure if I'll max out yet on the things.
On the Millie Maker, right?
Yeah, the Millie Maker.
Okay.
But I'm still mixing up things and I'm still editing. Obviously, I still have to edit this lineup. This is one of my bigger lineups.
No, but I think it's important people realize, DFS is DFS. So, when you talk about your percentages and stuff, if you're going to play 150 lineups, you could, 100 lineups like you're playing, you could expand your player pool. You know what I mean? As opposed to, if you're playing like 20 or 30 like me, it's probably going to be a little more condensed.
But just to give you a real quick rundown of even how they work. Like in the 555, I'm obviously much more willing to take a little bit more of the chalk on. Like, you don't need to worry the same level. That's obviously, if you play DFS, you'd know that by now. But so I just tried immediately to do what I always do. If I'm running a script and I want to get a percentage of players, I looked at my highest owned players, and they happen to all fit perfectly into one lineup over here.
That's awesome.
Easily. And I think the thing is that even Kokrak, who early in the week people were saying is going to be 3 or 4% owned, he's going to jump in ownership too a little bit. Hovland will as well. I need to try and find a way to mix some of what I like from both of these, and then add my man. I really like JT Poston this week. He's a guy I'll probably be adding to one of my 555s. And I looked a lot at course history, but the truth is a lot of these guys haven't played, so it's tough. But Poston's had, I believe he was 6th last year. He's just really, really cheap. And there's a lot of good players who are getting overlooked. Jim Furyk, who's solid and should have a good shot at at least a shot at the top 20 here. Corey Connors coming off a huge 9 under at 0.5% ownership and shot 10 under last week. There's just a lot of guys like that I am mixing in. And the only thing I'm sort of with you on is that for the most part, I've got a couple Rory lineups. As you can see, this is probably my Rory section. I'm heavier on Thomas. I think Thomas is the best play of all of them this week. I think Rory and Thomas are really close, but I would say Thomas slightly ahead of Rory. And I'm just not as interested in Rahm. I know DeChambeau is going to kill me a lot. I don't like him. I can't help it. I like him in general. I like him as a play. I don't know if I'm letting personal stuff bias me. I really just have I have an off-putting time with him. He also looks very awkward with his new body, even though he played incredibly well last week. But I felt like that about Koepka at one point too. So I feel like there's a lot of similarity with those huge oversized golfers. When they're putting, it looks unnatural. But I mean, he's been great. So I just, call it just personal bias. It's not really that. There's just the other golfers are better than he is at the same price range. That's just my personal take. We're giving him this credit as if he's already become the best golfer in the world. We're treating him like we did with Koepka a year ago. And you look at this Koepka in this tournament, it's 8,600, and I 100% have as much confidence in Koepka, or almost as much confidence in Koepka as I do in DeChambeau. That's just how I'm looking at it. Also, I think that, look, the guy missed a putt that would have got him into a playoff last week to win. That kind of stuff can affect people. Same thing with Morikawa. I'm a little bit worried about that. So that's just a bunch of stuff. A couple other guys who are really cheap who stood out from good past history at the course. Ian Poulter, I mentioned before. Streelman, I mentioned. I think I mentioned on my other show. And then I really like Finau also, just as a nice, solid play, always in contention, fits every course pretty well. I feel like he has like a little bit more room to grow as a golfer, and he's been really good. I just want to give away now the guy I'm most scared of, other than DeChambeau, who could kill my lineups that I don't have enough of, is Justin Rose. And there's really no reason except for that I just slightly prefer the other golfers in his range. And I just went on the whole thing about not liking DeChambeau. Well, I do like Justin Rose. He's actually made me some money at golf. And I just can't find a way to, like, every time I want to play him, I go, I'd rather play Reed or Woodland at cheaper prices. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense for me. But I'm going to throw him into a few because he's really solid. The truth is, it's somewhat like it was last week. I want to be real about this. As good as you are at DFS golf, this is somewhat of a crapshoot with what we're dealing with right now, more than we're used to dealing with in DFS. We can use all of our logic. We can do all the things we can, but we're going to have to get a little bit lucky. And last week was a great example of that. I mean, you had at one point 9 guys tied for the lead on Sunday. That's not going to happen every week. And if we get more stuff like that, you could feel like a genius. But the truth is that Jason Kokrak was just as likely to win that tournament as anybody else last week. And anyway, that's sort of the end of my spiel there about my ladder. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Another guy that I just kind of glossed over, but I have like a good 25% of him. I had like 60% of him last week. He was like my only good play. Do you have a decent amount of Answer this week?
I like Answer. Again, it's weird though, because there's a lot of players even in the low 7Ks that I actually like. So just looking at it right here, so I'm sort of into taking a shot on Harris English, bouncing back here, look, I mean, he's made 5 final tables, 5 top 10s this year. So I think Sergio is interesting as a complete like wild card play, just sort of how I do about Jason Day and even Bubba to some extent, and Cabrera Bell. Like, there's just a lot of guys, and it just becomes to where I have to just eliminate some. By the way, I did call this Kevin Na being out this week. I did predict that one.
Really?
Did you see him swing last week? The only reason he played the course at all, and I even played a little bit of him because I couldn't understand why no one would play him. I knew I heard things about his back or whatever. He looked like he couldn't even move, and it was amazing. He still almost made the cut.
Wow.
But anyway, there's just a lot of guys in that range where I just found myself not as high quite on Answer. I also preferred him on the course last week than I do this week from my limited knowledge. And like I'm trying to do a little bit more of what you're doing. I have a lot of guys in the 30-40% range, but I don't have the 50-60% owned guys. And while it makes your golf sweats live longer, the more you don't do that, you're going to have some potential. It's not necessarily the optimal way to play. So I'd like to harness it in and try and get some more. I don't know, just more direct guys that I really want to focus on, get a couple guys over 50%, probably being Woodland, Kuchar, and Simpson in that range or something like that.
So you know what we could do? Let's do what they do like on Roto Grinders. This is what I want to do. Tell me. Okay, let's do it this way. First of all, what guy do you have like a decent amount of that you really wish you didn't, but you do anyway? You know what I mean? Like, who do you think, oh my God, I have too much of this guy?
So in golf, I don't have that. I don't have that same thing. But in other sports, I absolutely have that. I don't have anybody that I have too much of it. There's a lot of guys who scare me. Justin Rose, John Rahm, and DeChambeau would be the ones who scare me the most because I don't have enough of them. But I don't feel. I mean, I guess that Kokrak, you could see just a complete letdown, and I'm sort of making a stand on him because I feel like he's going to be the lowest owned of these guys. I feel like really could be in contention, and he's below 8K. But I really like my guys. I mean, it's not every day. Like, I don't know everything about golf, and I feel like I'm too spread out. That's my biggest thing that I'm going to have to try and harness using my previous DFS experience. But it certainly won't be from my golf experience because I am, like we've talked about, I am still early on in my DFS golf career, whatever you want to call it. So I don't have anybody that I'm really afraid of. Is there somebody that you feel like that you're?
Yeah, so I have, and it's not that much. I have like 25% of a guy who it really just goes against the course, goes against whatever. Guy, I just never, I don't say like him, whatever. The guy always seems like he chokes, but he doesn't, but I have 25% of just Dustin Johnson. And I just see him just like throwing some balls into the freaking out of bounds and just like missing putts and just killing me. But, at that price, I was just kind of forced.
I love the Dustin Johnson. So those would be the two other guys who I'm most afraid of is Dustin Johnson and Brooks Koepka. Mostly because I think they'll be owned actually because the price is so right, and I really wanted them. And it feels wrong to play Matt Kuchar over those guys, but I think in this spot it's still the better play until you factor in ownership, I guess. But as it stands, I would bet on Kuchar ahead of either of those guys. But I wouldn't bet on Poulter to win as likely as often as those guys are.
So this is an easy question for me to answer because I don't have as many players as you do. But I'll put it to you another way. Who are you underweight on or have zero of that you're really afraid of just blowing up the tournament and you not winning because he just does really well?
Same guys, DeChambeau. And again, I'll have these guys in a couple lineups. DeChambeau, Rose, those would be a couple of them. Oops, I shouldn't be sharing this information. I forgot that I was still sharing my screen for a second. But Rose, DeChambeau, I'm trying to think of the other, Koepka, Dustin Johnson. But a lot of it's because they're guys who I strongly considered. And the real thing is, you're playing, basically, all the best golfers pretty much are playing. And all the best, they're all playing a course they've never played before. I would rather just gamble elsewhere. I don't know, man. It's hard to justify not playing them because they seem like good plays, but there's just so many good plays. The same thing with Rickie Fowler, by the way, who we didn't include in that part. He's 8,100, and
I got him. He's in there. He's right in there.
Yeah, and then you get Hatton and Answer, like you mentioned. That's why it's hard. I prefer Fitzpatrick this week to Answer. I guess that's
that's why I'm kind of counting on them not all being so popular because there's just so many of them.
They just can't be. They just simply, absolutely can't be. It's got to be spread out a little bit.
So here's the guy that I'm afraid of having zero of, or being underweight or whatever. That could be the best golfer right now.
Showplay.
And sort of is Morikawa. Okay, he's sick, and it's like a perfect Sheets play because he's exactly 10K. So nobody wants to play him. If we were 9,900, people might play him, but so he might be under-owned at 10K, even though he won last week. So he's the guy that look, I think I have good logic in at least my head for for not playing Rory. I think it's just going to be whoever the number one player in the world to me is always going to be, over-owned. He just is. Not to say I won't play him, but so at least I have a justification.
Sure.
Thomas and Rahm again are a little popular and they're expensive. DeChambeau I went over for an hour why I don't like him. And Schauffele maybe some recency bias, but Morikawa, I mean, like he's just the perfect guy to just he's not going to bury me too much because it's not like 60% of the people are going to own him and I will have zero of him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and just to point out, by the way, for people out there just who weren't, again, I'm going to say this again last week. The guy who won the Millionaire, and by the way, he was up by 1 million points until the final hole, but he won it barely. But he didn't have Daniel Berger who won the event. And if you have the guy who doesn't win the event and you win a tournament that size, it should at least give you the reason to have an optimistic, like, you can always have a fun sweat on Sunday. I mean, I had tournament lineups that were in the top 100 of the Millionaire at one point, and the next minute they would be 10,000. It was just incredible. That kind of stuff is fun, but it's like, I would like it to be a little bit more spread out than it was last week, I guess.
You know who doesn't bother me for some reason? I guess he should, but I have zero im, and it's probably bad, but for whatever, again, I have no justification for this, but it doesn't really bother me. Like I'm a little more upset that I don't have Matsuyama than im for some reason. Just not exactly sure why that is.
They're both excellent. The only difference is im played last week.
I know.
They're legitimately both probably two of the top 10 players in the world right now. Probably maybe higher than that even. Im especially. Im might be Im honestly before last week, and even he played great last week too. By the way,
who's missing from this tournament?
Im is probably the best player the best player who's been playing the best golf over the last 5 tournaments, right? Like,
but I mean, when you think about it, who's missing from this tournament? He's being priced like he's the 7th best player, right?
Right now he's the number 1 FedEx Cup points leader.
Sungjae Im?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
He's number 1. And by the way, do you know there's only 2 guys who have made it the top 5 twice? And one of them surprised me. The other one didn't. Justin Thomas.
I was going to say Furyk, but no.
Xander Schauffele.
Really?
Yeah. And it was just well, he's still in the top 5 this year, so they're counting on him making it this year. But I think he's number 2. Anyway, hey man, this is fun. Look, we don't pretend to know the most about golf. We're figuring this out as long as we go. Our other content is obviously a little bit superior in terms of actual strategy, but I think there's something you guys can still take from this. And if there's other things you want to know or talk about, just go ahead and hit us up in the DMs, hit us up on YouTube, hit us up on Twitter, wherever you want. We're trying to make this a better experience for you. We don't have our regular sports going, so we are going full thrust into this. And after we win $1 million this week, we can all celebrate together. So, Sheets, anything else before we get out of here?
Yeah, and you know what? If we don't make the cut, then there's always the showdown.
There you go.
The showdown slate. And then there's DGen Saturday, not to mention MMA. I mean, there's all kinds of action before we have to worry about whether they actually play baseball or whether they actually – oh, that's another story.
I don't think they're playing baseball. But I really don't. But, I mean, it's possible. But I do think the NBA –
I'll give you one quote. Okay, so I know that they published all the different guidelines about the NBA bubble. And you read through this? And, like, all the different, like, amenities and all this stuff they got going on.
Yeah.
What's that?
Some of them are pretty funny.
So I texted my brother, again, who works in the NBA, and I sent him to whatever, like, boy, it must be nice to be the NBA players and whatever. And he says, how you can't believe to imagine the analysis and negotiation that went into all of those items, parentheses, thankfully not from my group.
Yeah, that's what I would picture. I mean, the things they're negotiating over. And also, one of the things that they're really upset about is that and I don't understand this. I mean, we have a lot of things that are contradictory going on in the world right now. But one thing that's interesting about the NBA that I just want to mention before we get out of here, why can the people it's bizarre, like they have to be quarantined and tested every day. And then everybody else who works at the facilities is not going to be tested every day and is allowed to go home. It doesn't make any sense. It's just like one of those, what do you do? So that's why until I find like concrete evidence, which we felt like we had on the NBA, and then of course a week later, here we are, we're feeling like maybe we won't have it. I just don't feel like saying anything about it almost because it's just, that next week it's going to be a different story. I don't know. It's a crazy world, but we do have golf and we're going to go for the Millionaire Maker this week. We're going to go for all the other ones. You guys, thanks so much for tuning in. It's great to have you back. For Sheets, I'm Bobby saying we hope to see you at the top of leaderboards.
I will see you later, Bobby.
See you, bud.